Birds far more accurately reflect our own sort of human method of parenting, with a monogamous pair and, well, nominally monogamous pair, with the male playing a huge role in parenting. And it doesn't tend to happen much with the mammals. And as human beings, we're often looking for things that make it, that we can identify with. So we really like the idea of a male mammal that is like our fathers, like we feel our fathers should be, supportive and sort of defending the family and looking after the family. And normally the mammals aren't really like that at all, but the birds often are. So definitely a slightly louder dawn chorus this morning. We've gone from a quintet possibly to an octet. We're still not quite in full chorus though. Come the first rains, I'm sure it will be like Beethoven's Ninth out here. Brian, do you see the fish eagle? It is so far away that we will not point the camera at this stage. So we're heading towards Gowrie Waterhole. Karula is around here somewhere. Whether she will make a return, I'm not sure. I don't have a great feeling about it. What do your bones say, Brian? Yeah. Just to keep you updated on those, we did head off to the far east today and try and just see if anything had come out from Torchwood, which is to the east of us, but there are no tracks coming this way, and I believe that there was, ooh, there's a juvenile fish eagle there. Sorry, let me get you into position. You can see completely different flight pattern from the batelier, completely different. Much deeper wing beats, much more economical. We'll just drive around towards the waterhole now and see if we can't get a look at that other fish eagle, the adult. And while we're doing that, I'm going to answer two questions about the zebra. Wendy in Nebraska, where you obviously don't horses. Yeah, absolutely, exactly like horses. They're more like ponies than there are horses. They probably stand at about 14 hands. So if you're a horsey person, you'll know what that means. And so they've got little hooves. And then another question about whether or how many mares there are in a little kinship group. Normally anything from 1 to 4. 1 to 4, and yeah, that's probably about the limit at which a stallion can maintain a harem. Nip across onto the dam wall here. While we were racing towards Karula, we did go past 20 buffalo bulls or so, and we were just noting, Brian and I, how they looked so hurt that we'll just stop here and listen. How long do they live? Probably also round about, I'd say probably 20 to 30 years. I'm not entirely sure, but they are pretty long-lived. What I'm going to do while we sit and look at that catfish-infested pond of scummy mud and buffalo dung is check on my bird app, and I'll see if I can't find out exactly how long they live. I think they're pretty well studied, you know, so we might be able to get an idea. What I can tell you is we did see the immature flying away, and they take, the immature is about as big as an adult, but has sort of floppy, or not floppy, it has sort of mottled colouring, and they take 5 or 6 years to get, 4 or 5 years to get to their adult plumage. Life expectancy, as I just read, is estimated to be 16 to 24 years, so not quite as long-lived as a batelier. And I wonder if that doesn't have something to do with the fact that they like to, well, they don't like to, they have to, they do a bit more hunting than they do scavenging, and perhaps that takes its toll on the body. I think that's probably precisely what happens. So, up to 24 years, Cecilia, they think. That's the sort of estimated guess at how long they live. I think it's probably possible to get a fairly accurate look for some birds if you ring them and then monitor them, but in captivity, of course, things will be very different, and so in the wild it's often difficult to tell exactly how long something will live. Fish eagles, of course, will also scavenge. They don't only kill fish, but if they can, they will eat fish. And that's why they're called, Brian? Fish eagles, yes, well done. The little squirrel. Let's just have a look at him there. I don't know, can you get him? He's probably come out of his hole because he can hear the alternator. No, there was a little squirrel on the tree there. So more lovely comments from MJ and Georgianne about the batelier, and I'm totally open to the fact that I might be wrong here. So MJ, you say it's an archaic form of French, and that's why no Frenchman that I've met has ever heard of it. That's well possible, I guess. And then Georgianne, you say it comes, you found it in the Oxford Dictionary, which is normally a fairly reliable source, saying that it does come from a sort of mid-18th century French meaning acrobat or juggler. Thank you for that. So maybe that is where it comes from. I just had the notion the other day that when you watch them fly, they do have a very bat-like sort of beat to the wings. That's quite nice, Brian. Bat-like beat to the wings. We're going to go quickly back across to Scott. It looks like Shadow's about to hunt something. I'll see you a bit later with any luck. Good luck with the hunt.
Welcome back, everyone. And it looks like Shadow and Sandila have now split up. And she was continuing on towards Treehouse Waterhole where we were waiting for her. And she didn't arrive, so we decided to go in and look for her, and we found her. She's currently hunting something. We're not sure what, but she has been stalking very, very intently, and there could be something just up ahead of her. So somewhere in this thick bush is some potential prey. Like I said, we're not sure what it is, but the fact that she was so delayed to get to the waterhole told us, and I actually said to Andrew, well, maybe she's found something to hunt, and that's what's delayed her getting to the waterhole for a drink. And as we found her, we saw her stalking up quickly, heading in this direction, and now she's just stopped, stationary, listening. It's very difficult for them to get close to their prey, especially without the cover of darkness, and especially now in winter, that the vegetation is so dry. So she doesn't have as much cover as she would like, and now she's probably going to have to move very, very slowly, which she's doing now. So Andrew's going to zoom in. You'll see by the way that she's moving as quietly as possible, keeping quite low to the ground. Look at her little tail twitching there. And she has been moving quite some distance, so I'm not sure if the prey has got wind of her, but it has appeared to be moving in a southerly direction, and she's following quite intently. Just need to get onto the radio quickly to tell the vehicles that's just got into the sighting where she is. Affirmative, she's just approaching the small drainage line down to my right, but she is mobile south towards the road. I'm not sure what she's following, but she is intent on something here. Look at how well she blends in. What is your next move going to be, Shadow? Are you going to continue trying to hunt, or are you going to go for a drink? I think she may be inclined to try and make the most of this hunting opportunity, even though we haven't seen what it is that she's stalking. There must be something here, judging by her body language. Ephraim, we are west of the dam on Treehouse Road, between Treehouse Dam and Shibam. And because she is hunting, and because it is quite thick, and we've had so many good views of her already this morning, I don't want to try and get too close and interfere in her hunt in any way. So we just need to try and keep our distance to let her do her business and not interfere and possibly chase off her prey. So please just be patient and bear with us, but understandably we don't want to have an impact on what happens out here. We merely want to spectate, and in thick vegetation like this we're just going to have to keep our distance, and hopefully she'll get successful. Oh, look at this, she's still creeping ahead very, very intently, flattening her body to the ground. She may be getting much closer to the prey now, judging by the way she's moving. You can just see a little white tail twitching in excitement there. As her tail twitches in excitement, we've got a question through from Reese, and he's interested to know if they may flick their tail to create a distraction to their prey, as he has seen on another documentary, I take it, that a leopard was also twitching its tail excitedly as it was hunting something. Reese, I don't think they would want to attract any attention to themselves, even though it may be a distraction, I guess, of sorts. I think the tail twitching can only really be seen by anything that's behind the animal, and any prey that's in front of it would not likely be able to detect that tail flicking. It's also important to note that as we saw it from behind, it's white at the back of the tail, but the front of the tail is rosetted and dark in color, black spots with gold markings, so it's going to be a lot better camouflaged from the front view than from the back. And I think it's merely just the excitement. It's not trying to create any distractions to their prey. Well, what I'm going to suggest doing is trying to loop right around and see if we can't get a different angle as to what she may be hunting. just trying to find where we are, so I'm just going to get on the radio to him quickly. Ephraim, go ahead. The western side, F, between the dam and Shabam Road. Okay, so she's somewhere on our right, down in this valley, and she's been looking intently in this direction, so hopefully we're going to find the prey that she's stalking. We haven't seen anything so far, so I'm guessing it could be something small, maybe like a steenbuck or a duiker. If it was impala, I would have guessed that we would have had a view by now. Nothing to see so far, which is surprising. I would have thought we would have seen something. Okay, well, she was last just off to our right over here, heading towards us in this very small riverbed that we parked in. And while we were giving her space to try and hunt whatever it is she was interested in, we obviously lost a visual of her, so now I'm not sure where she could be exactly. But somewhere in this thick bush she could be lying up resting. And interestingly, Cecilia's just commented that she's interested by the fact that Shadow's not taking any time to rest. And you're right, it is interesting, Cecilia, but she's a good mother, hard at work, worrying about securing the next meal. And importantly, with predators, even though she would have liked to have a drink, and that's what her plans were, she was heading straight towards the treehouse waterhole, she diverted that plan because a hunting opportunity came up. And any opportunities for the predators needs to be taken because their strike rate is very low. They'll only succeed 10 to 20% of attempted stalks. So if they don't try as much as they can, they're not going to be successful. Now I feel sorry for poor old Ephraim because he's just a few minutes away and we don't know where the leopard is. But it goes like that sometimes out here. It's very, very thick in here, so it's going to make life difficult for us in snooping about trying to find her. And I normally wouldn't be too concerned as to what we're going to do because we've had such good views of her and her cub this morning. But I feel sorry for poor old Ephraim now. He's very close by and I'm not going to be able to tell him where the leopard is. So I just want to spend some more time in this area helping Ephraim to try and relocate. Let's just let him know on the radio what's going on. Ephraim, I don't have visual of her anymore, but I'm just going to stay in the area and try and relocate. Sorry, go again? Oh, copy, wonderful. We'll see you now. Well, the good news is Ephraim's relocated her and she's just on the road where we've come off. And he says it looks like she's still intently following something. So good news, she's still on the hunt. And Ephraim does have a view of her. I just want to stop and listen just to work out exactly where he is. I think he is in front of us. I can hear some lilac-breasted rollers having a squabble with one another off to the right, so if you can hear some birds squawking, that's the lilac-breasted roller. And Andrew, see if you can, it's a bit of a gamble. I've just seen it flying up there. Andrew's going for it. We might get to see it doing its rolling display. Oh, it's just starting to do it there. You saw it kind of teetering from side to side. Well done, Andrew. And at this time of the year, they'll continue to start competing with other lilac-breasted rollers, doing these flight displays and aerial displays, establishing territories and finding mates. Well, the plan to stop and listen for Ephraim didn't work too well. I've got no idea where he is, but at least we got to see the roller. Ephraim, will I get your visual from Shaban? Okay, so I think she moved past us. Apologies. We will get there again eventually. It's been to be able to spend this long with a leopardess and her cub. Now they've split up, like I said, but still we got to spend some really great quality time with them. And now we're continuing with her on the hunt. Imagine if we get to see her catch something. It's been a while since we've filmed the leopard making a kill. I think the last successful kill filmed of a leopard was when we saw Karula catch a baby impala in December last year. Ephraim, I'm approaching Shabam Road from Treehouse Junction. We are very close to our southern boundary, sadly, so there's a strong chance she may cross out into our neighbouring property, but we'll hopefully get one more view of her. But sadly, there's no sign of Ephraim, so he's told me to come. Yeah, if I'm not entirely sure where you are. I've come onto Shabbat Road now on Gowrie Dam. Okay, copy, thanks. Isn't too far away. The instructions have just been a little bit misleading and confusing because I've lost track of whether the leopard's south of the road or north of the road, but I think we're gonna get lucky again shortly. I'm wondering if he hasn't found Sindile, or if he is in fact still with Shadow, because now we're heading back towards where her and Sindile parted. I can see a vehicle, so that's good news. And she must be somewhere nearby now. It's incredible how far she actually moved in such a short space of time. But she is mobile, apparently south, which is towards us. We've been heading north now. So we're going to just try and sneak in. There's a little gap here in the bush where we can sneak in and try and get another visual of her and try and work out what it is she's hunting. Thanks very much, F. Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Somewhere right here, and I've yet to see her myself. Andrew, where's she hiding? Well, while we try and find her here, might be worth sending you back to James, because it's very thick and we don't want to drag you through this process unnecessarily when you could be spending some time with James. I'm going to have to concentrate here, so we will see you all a little bit later if we do have any luck relocating her.
Hello everybody and welcome back to Wendy. We have not found Karula, but we have found a number of very interesting termites. Now, I am perched here upon the mound of Macrotermes natalensis, the famous fungus-growing termite of Africa. And this one is very active, and you can see often people will say to you they're not active if they've got grass on them. That is clearly a foul and contemptible lie. And I put my hands over this right now, and the feeling is one of like a sauna, sort of. It's about 36 degrees in there, hot steam coming out of it from the metabolic heat, and hopefully upon this grass you will see a little soldier termite. Brian, how's that? Can you see him? Mm-hmm. Now he's clamped his pincers. I'm going to bring him closer to you, and it could be a him or a her. Difficult to tell. Not quite as easy as, say, with an elephant. And the pincers are clamped onto the grass because the grass was what was invading the mound. And you can see there that those vicious little pincers are attacking this piece of grass in an attempt to ward off further incursions into the mound where the workers are trying to desperately build that tunnel. So all around the edge of that tunnel, or the inner workings of the tunnel, where I'm going to return this soldier to now, all along the inner workings there are workers frantically building, and around the workers frantically building are these soldiers that are protecting them. This is a minor soldier. The major soldiers are about that big. So they're that much larger than these minor ones, and they will draw blood. I don't see any in here at the moment, but it is fascinating. I'm just going to break off a little piece of it just to show you what it looks like. And there you can see sort of, it's mud and it's dung, sand, and they often, the mounds will reach down to the water table, and you can see the moisture there. There's also an ant in there that's probably raiding. A little ant, see the little ant crawling around there, and what that little ant will be doing will be, he's not big enough to be sort of actually raiding the mound, but he may be part of a scouting party that could be coming towards the mound to try and raid it. Ants are major termite mound raiders. In fact, one of the biggest predators of termite larvae are ants. So I was just saying, you can see how moist it is, and there's no moisture around on top of the surface of the land at the moment. So these mounds go all the way down to the water table, which is quite a feat. I would suspect in this area that's probably close to 20 meters that water's coming from. So I mean, that is an astonishing thing for a group of termites to have done, to have tunneled down 20 meters to the water table so that they can build their mound. Anyway, that is all I have to say about the termites for now. We are going to continue on our way. I just sat on my radio, so I cannot hear the dulcet tones of Jessica Biffy. There, she's back. So, Heidi, I said it was about 36 degrees in that termite mound. I think that's what it was. That's certainly what it felt like. I think that there definitely have been studies done on exactly how hot it is in there. I think it's between 32 and 36 degrees, and that of course is the optimum temperature for metabolic processes to take place. After, over sort of 39 and 40, the enzymes which are required for metabolic processes will stop functioning. And so if you can get your temperature up to around 32, 36, that's when your metabolism will work best. And that colony almost functions as one organism. So they maintain their temperature almost like a mammal does. Or the mound maintains its temperature like a mammal does, at roughly the same temperature as your body. And that's because the enzymes function regardless of what species you are at roughly that temperature. Just over here we have a herd of impala, one of whose number seems to have been killed roundabout where Shadow and Sindile were found today. I know Lee found some hair from one of the impala, but there are so many of them that they don't seem to be too dreadfully upset by the loss of one of their kin. And you can see a completely mixed herd here, males and females, youngsters, adults. That's a young male, and he's almost a year old now, And impala are very easy to age, of course, because we know when they're born. They're born at the end of November, early December, and so when they get to around this time of year, we know that they are how many months old, Brian? Almost 10 months old, Brian. Yes, nearly a year. Sindile is just over a year now, I think, so they're just younger than he is. And unfortunately for the impala, they don't garner the same level of fascination that someone like Sindile does, but that's not to say they aren't equally as important parts of this magnificent ecosystem in which I find myself every day, and I do have to keep reminding myself that that is just a rare and magnificent privilege. There is also, you will see there, as Brian pans across, a zebra that has decided to seek safety amongst the impala. And the impala of the age that they are now, those sort of young, what we call penkop, which means pen heads, they won't participate in the rut until they're at least 2.5 to 3 years old. Well, I mean, they won't be 3 years old yet. So 2.5 is probably when they'd start. And then when they're 3.5 to 4.5 years old, that's basically when they will start to be able to breed. I mean, they certainly would get absolutely savaged by some of the adult rams were they to try and have their way with one of the estrus females come May next year. There is also, interestingly, and this is something that very few people know, a second breeding season for impala. And I think this is what has led to this sort of ridiculous belief that impala are able to hold their young. So there was for many years a belief that impala can hold their young in order to wait for the rains. Now, physically that's just ridiculous, because the fetus would not stop growing and it's already very large when it's born. So were they to hold them, say, for 2 or 3 months, people have said that they've seen them hold their babies for 2 or 3 months in waiting for the rains when they come, and then drop their lambs, and that's just not possible. So what happens, and this is actually the only time I've seen impala mating in the day, is that in September there is a sort of second mating season, and those ewes that are not pregnant often become pregnant in September. It's a very small proportion, probably 5% of them, if that, and they will then drop their lambs 7 months after that. And I think that is what gave rise to this ridiculous notion that they can hold the fetus until favorable conditions sort of pervade the area. And there are guides, I'm telling you now, all the way around Africa, telling people that impala are able to hold their lambs and only give birth sort of at will when conditions are favorable. And that is utter nonsense. You can see, quite interestingly, Brian, can we go back to that zebra just so we can compare the sort of colour? In fact, there's an impala with the zebra there. I'm just going to perform an acrobatic feat to get out of the way of the camera. So look at the difference in the colour, and it really does beg the question as to what strategy or what has created such a totally different strategy to predator avoidance, or is it predator avoidance? So that we think the impala is basically that brownish colour in order to avoid predation. But if it was grey, like a duiker for example, it would be much more difficult to see in that environment than it is now. It actually stands out. That sort of red chestnut colour really does stand out, don't you think, Brian? So is it brown to be disguised? I'm not so sure. Look at the zebra. The zebra is even more obvious. It is like a clown sitting in the middle of a circus ring. It's the first thing you'd see. If your eye were to glance across this area, it would be the first thing you see. So I think a lot of the time we think animals have different colors in order to camouflage themselves, but that's not always true, I don't think. So if we look at the impala, one of the things that a lot of the antelope here have is a very pale belly, as do leopards and various others. And of course it gets very hot here, and in the sort of, say, before the shade is good and when they have to be out in the middle of the sun, there's a lot of heat that reflects off the ground onto their bellies. And so the belly, you don't want to be white out here because then you really are obvious, but the belly then reflects that heat back onto the ground, and so it helps to maintain temperature. So I think a lot of the adaptations or colors that we see have to do with heat balance, and well, obviously to avoid predation as well, but I think heat balance is a major reason for some of the colors. Just hear some Franklins calling there. You can see, just look at that picture, that's actually a brilliant example of it. The first thing you'd see there, other than the magnificent jackalberry tree there, is the white and black stripes of the zebra's bottom sticking out on the left-hand side there. I think we're very quick, we're very, very quick, in fact, to sort of talk about animals' coloration as being some sort of camouflage or some way of disguising themselves. And what happens then is that, much like the impala lamb sort of myth that I've presented to you, it becomes part of the sort of guides or lexicon, and the legends of it fill the bush. And so these things go on and on and on, and they perpetuate, and they become sort of part of the truth. And I wonder if the batelier, and I think our audiences, Georgianne especially, has pretty much put pay to that, but I just wondered if the batelier name wasn't similarly, you know, somebody said once it was acrobat or tumbler, and maybe that's why it became that, and everyone accepted it as gospel. Georgianne has very kindly pointed out that even the Oxford English Dictionary says it is Old French. But another good one, while we drive along here, the most dominant tree that you'll see on all of the ridge crests here is the marula tree. Now the marula tree is used to make various kinds of beverages, some of them alcoholic, and, sorry Brian, astonishing bird flying over us. It's an eagle of some sort, and it is the first Wahlberg's eagle. Look at that. I was just saying yesterday how excited I was going to be to see a Wahlberg's eagle, because they really are the first herald of spring for me, and there he is. That actually makes up for all of the sightings that I've missed today. Wonderful. Wahlberg's eagle, everybody, he's back. And I know that because of the size, a small eagle with a very narrow tail. And the tail was just a little bit flared there as he flew over. And I'll show you a picture of my Wahlberg's eagle. That is very exciting. Hooray. Winter is over. Officially, according to me, as of now. Let me find the magnificent Wahlberg's eagle for you. There he is. He comes in a variety of different colors and cultivars, and that one was the sort of stock standard brown. They'll be looking now for mates. I mean, some of them will come back with mates, and then they'll probably often go back to one or two nest sites. Often it's the same nest site from year after year that they'll go back to and try and raise a single chick, which will then migrate away at the end of the summer, which mercifully is well away from us now. Yay, first Wahlberg's eagle. Brian, are you excited?
I'm very good.
So, Wahlberg's eagle, Aquila wahlbergii, feel a great sense of warmth now pervading my body. So, all the way along these ridge crests, as I was saying, are the marula trees, and you can make various things from marula trees, including jam, beer, and it is put into something called amarula cream, although I think it's more for the name that they actually use the stuff. I don't think they use very much at all. But what that did was it led to, combined with a movie called The Gods Must Be Crazy. I'm just going to look at some nyala we have here. It gave to the rise to the legend that elephants can become drunk by eating marula fruit. Now this has been comprehensively disproved by somebody who said for an elephant to have that level of alcohol from marula fruit, that it would make them drunk, that each bucket sort of full of marulas would be the equivalent of half a beer. And so an elephant would have to eat something in the vicinity of 200 kilograms in order to become vaguely affected. It's a lovely, beautiful grey lurry, and while we look at it, a very nice question from X-Ranga, and I don't know the answer to it, but I'm going to make some suggestions to what you can perhaps look up. So X-Ranga in Tasmania, you have said that you've read that kangaroos can perhaps terminate pregnancies, maybe hold pregnancies according to conditions. Now I would say for a marsupial that would be very different than for what we call a placental mammal, which is what all of the mammals out here are. A marsupial, remember when it's born, I think a kangaroo's only about that big when it's born, when it first goes into the pouch. So I would imagine that it would be possible for a termination, and there certainly are animals out here that can terminate pregnancies, either abort spontaneously, or possibly when if it's early enough in the pregnancy, reabsorb the fetus. And I would suspect that a marsupial, because the size of the fetus is so much smaller relative to a placental mammal before it's born, I suspect that that is quite possible, X-Ranga, but have a look. I think it would be very different for the placental mammals out here, where the fetus is born obviously so much bigger than it is for a marsupial. Lovely question, thank you for that. Right, so the nyalas have pressed upon, and so shall we. While we're driving along on this grey day here, looking for interesting things, I'm just quickly going to perhaps explain the difference between a placental mammal and a marsupial, and then we'll go across to Scott. A marsupial, for those of you who don't know, is something like a kangaroo, which carries its baby in a pouch for many months before it's able to be independent. And a placental mammal is something like us, or all of the mammals out here, which have a placenta in the uterus, off of which the baby or the fetus will survive. So we're going to head across to Scott. He's got a large, tall mammal, a bit like Brian and very unlike me, and we'll see you just now.
Welcome back from the interesting discussion with James on marsupials and their gestation periods. We've got another animal here. It's not a marsupial, and all you can see are some of its legs for now, but as Andrew continues to pan up, you'll soon realize that it is a beautiful big giraffe. Look at that dark coat. He's a big old bull. Sadly, his head is right behind this weeping wattle tree as he chews gently on the cud. He's got quite a battered and scarred head. I'm sure he has been in lots of battles with other giraffes, and they'll use their long necks and that head like a battering ram to pound into their opponents. So their heads often do have quite a few damages and bumps. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to try and reposition quickly, because I think he's not going to move too much, and we'll try and get you a clear view of his head. We're still in the same area where we last saw Shadow. Sandile could pop out anywhere in this general area as well, even though they did split up. Going to work a little bit further forward. There we go. That should do the trick. So not sure where she disappeared to. She was intently hunting something, so that's why we're still here, hoping we might hear something. But we got lucky and bumped into this giraffe along the way. And I'm hoping we're going to get lucky. If Andrew zooms into its head and neck, we might be able to actually see it swallowing the cud. And watch closely. I think he's just swallowed, and we're going to see the next bolus coming up his neck into his mouth. Watch closely. There it goes. Boom. If you blinked, you would have missed it. And now he'll continue to chew on this cud for probably about 20 or 30 seconds before he swallows it and starts chewing on the next one. So a 4-chambered stomach, just like a cow or buffalo. Lots of the ruminants is what they are called, the animals that chew the cud. Now you can see what I was talking about earlier, that head of his. Lots of bumps and scratches. Bit of a breeze blowing here, and it's completely clouded over. Some nice overcast conditions. It's warmed up dramatically in the few weeks that I've been away, and was very surprised to see how warm it was yesterday and even this morning. So these clouds are a blessing for us to keep us cool. I don't think they're going to bring any rain. The next rains we will probably get will, in all likelihood, be around October. So still a couple of months of dry weather awaits us. And it's going to be tough for the herbivores, just like this giraffe, to find enough food to keep them well nourished for the rest of the dry season. Speaking of the rainy season, we've got a question through from Cynthia, and she would like to know what happens when it rains. How do we continue to broadcast? What do we do? What can you expect in the coming rainy season? It's a good question, Cynthia, and basically we are going to try and develop a kind of canopy that we can try and cover the vehicles with, and drop down flaps, so we could probably put the canopy on the vehicle if we're expecting rain, so that way we can continue to broadcast during the rain. However, the last rainy season we weren't really well kitted out to do that, so we would typically spend time answering questions of yours. So just like kind of like a fireside chat. We just park under a roof of one of the garages and sit and chat with you and answer your questions. But hopefully this rainy season we will be a little bit better prepared and have some kind of a canopy that we can cover the vehicles with, so we can continue to broadcast. It obviously does get tricky though, because the canopy makes you less maneuverable off-road, and another thing to bear in mind in the rainy season, Cynthia, is that a lot of areas become inaccessible because it becomes too waterlogged, and we'll just get stuck and cause deep ruts and a mess off-road. So we typically try and stick to the roads during the rainy season. So that can be a bit of a limiting factor. Thankfully, the last rainy season, we didn't have too much rain, so it didn't impact us too badly. But this coming rainy season, if it is a normal rain season where we will get about 500 millimeters of rain annually during the months of October, November, December, and January, those are our main rainfall seasons, or rainfall months, we could be expecting a lot of rainy weather, but hopefully, like I say, we will have some systems in place to allow us to continue filming. The animals, thankfully, don't really have anywhere to hide out during the rain, so everything kind of continues. Some of them will lie up in bushes and try and take cover where they can, but they are all still out and about, so it will be great to be able to film them during the rain. He really is a beautiful big specimen, this. I've just heard a squirrel alarm calling, and it's not too far from here. So we'll wait a few more moments and then probably head off and see if the squirrel hasn't spotted Shadow or Sindile. It'll be great for us to try and keep as close a tabs of them as possible this morning, as that will increase our likelihood of finding them this afternoon on the sunset safari. Great, well I think we can leave this big old boy here to continue chewing the cud and go and see what else we can find. Another thing, Cynthia, that's going to change during the summer months is it's going to become incredibly green and thick. It's so much easier for us to spot animals off-road now and also follow them off-road because there's not nearly as much vegetation as there will be in a few months' time. It's going to be so awesome to experience and share the change of the seasons with all of you. And we're all already very excited for the first rains. Birds are also going to be arriving in the coming months, migrating back to us from all other parts of Africa and even further abroad than that. From Europe and Asia, some birds will travel, so there are going to be about 200 more birds in the area during our summer months, and an influx of insect life, as well as reptiles. A lot of the reptiles that are lying dormant now during the cold, dry months are going to come out and keep us entertained. So there's going to be a lot more animals to see than the winter months. So that's something to look forward to. Scanning very closely here. This is the area where Ephraim last had a visual of Shadow. As you can see, it's very thick. So we've got our work cut out for us. if we don't have any luck here, we're going to loop around to the treehouse waterhole. There's a chance that both Shadow and Sindile have possibly made their way there to eventually have a drink after she got sidetracked on her way there earlier, hunting something. Continue the search for wherever these leopards could be. We're going to send you back to James so you can continue your discussion. I believe he's clearing up some myths and legends about the animals out here, and I'd like to continue chatting about that with you. So enjoy, and we will see you all a little bit later.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Wendy, and I believe you had a marvellous giraffe sighting, Scott. And we're just going to continue with the discussion on the sort of fetus holding and the ability of mammals to do that sort of thing. And Maggie M, you make a lovely statement that dovetails nicely with ex-Ranger from Tasmania. You say that you have definitely read and seen perhaps that kangaroos can hold a fetus or an embryo suspended while one is in the pouch until conditions are favorable, or until the one in the pouch, the joey in the pouch has left. So that's very interesting. And again, I think that's probably because they're the marsupials and they probably have a slightly different system from the placentals. I'm sure there are some placental mammals though that are able to reabsorb perhaps the fetus before a certain stage. But once bones and teeth and that sort of thing start to develop, I would imagine it's very difficult. And certainly in conditions, adverse conditions out here, I imagine it's possible for things like impala to perhaps abort their fetuses spontaneously, and they will then disappear obviously quite quickly through predation and scavenging. No further tracks of deer, little Karula, so we are just looking for what else we can see at this stage. Just some further comments as we drive past a marula tree. This is one here on our right hand side. Basically on the elephants getting drunk, and Georgianne and Marianne have got some comments on that. And Georgianne, you say, would they have to hold the marula fruits in the stomach in order for them to ferment in order to get drunk? This is the elephants, of course. Georgianne, well, no, I think they would probably have to eat them already fermented. I don't think that they would form too much alcohol in the stomach. I'm not really sure, but regardless, it's impossible. And the legend comes from a film called The Gods Must Be Crazy. I think that's what it was, where apparently, you know, it's an old South African film, and it was probably used for poetic license. And Marianne, like you say, impossible for it to happen. You don't think the elephants can get drunk? Well, certainly not on a couple of marula fruits. I've eaten many marula fruits in my time, and I have never become inebriated on any of them. Right? You? No. They are, of course, extremely high in vitamin C, so it's possible that vitamin C in enormous doses could have some kind of effect, but I seriously doubt it. Again, the numbers of marula fruits that would need to be devoured would be so enormous. I'm going to do one more turn about Gallagher Waterhole, where the famous Queen of Djuma was found earlier today. alas, before Brian and I could get there. It's a very grey day. I think, what was it with you, Brian? We were just saying it's quite nice every so often to have a day like this out here, where it feels kind of mysterious and slightly ominous, as opposed to the very bright sun that we normally have. This is round about where I left you, where we left trying to find Karula earlier, and well, we'll just see. We might be lucky. If she doesn't pop out somewhere, I suspect it will mean that she's murdered something inside the block and is perhaps just coming to the waterhole to drink while she eats it, in which case we should be able to find her, but getting a vehicle in there will present another challenge entirely. You've been looking at Shadow all day, and Sindile as well. They are, of course, the daughter and grandson of Karula, the queen of Djuma and WildEarth. And Siberia, Zumi, you want to know what would happen if they met because of their ages. Well, I think that Shadow is just about 9 and Karula is probably pushing 12 at this stage, or certainly in her 12th year. And if they met, you want to know, would they fight? No, they wouldn't. Well, very unlikely. Daughters and mothers tend to have very kind of friendly relations. They don't meet often, but when they do, there is definitely a recognition. And I don't think that that's got anything to do with the age of the animals. So even at this late stage, I think they'd meet each other. I think that you'd find that the meeting would be fairly amicable, provided there wasn't too much food involved, sharing their food, as you've seen. But yeah, so I think it would be entirely friendly, and I think the same would go at the moment for Karula and Sindile. But as Sindile gets a little bit older, so that will probably change, because once he becomes a territorial male, things seem to change quite a lot, and they become a lot more, as the testosterone starts to course through their bodies, it just tends to make them very different animals indeed. And I suppose that's the same for human beings and all other mammals as well. So I'm afraid not much going on here at the moment. So I'm just going to go around the corner, stop, and we'll just have a recap of the morning's frustrations and joys. Right, so we have a few minutes left, and I'm going to hand you back to Scott, who's going to close off the show, because he's had an extremely exciting morning with you that you have shared with him, and I'm quite jealous. Brian, are you quite jealous of that? Yep. Haven't seen a leopard for a wee whiley, and it would be very nice to see one. Perhaps this afternoon I shall be lucky. Now, it's a very sort of ominously, like I said, ominously weathered day, so I'm quite looking forward to going and enjoying it wherever I will during the course of the day. I'll probably go for a little wander a bit later and enjoy it. Thank you very much for all your contributions today. We did have some interesting discussions despite the lack of large game that we found, so thank you very much to all of you who sent questions and comments. Thank you very much to Brian, of course, on camera. The thumb is clean today, so no xylene infected pictures on the thumb today. And thank you, of course, to the debut, first directing of Jessica Biffy. Interesting name that, I've never heard it before. I shall find out today where it comes from. And also Tara Dales, who I believe is just controlling things, and Nikki will probably be back this afternoon. So thank you all very much. We will see you, I think, this afternoon, and if not, it will be tomorrow morning. See you later, and enjoy the rest of your day, evening, morning, whatever it is, wherever you happen to find yourself on our magnificent planet. Bye-bye.
Well, just like the big bull giraffe we saw earlier, this buffalo bull and his companions are also chewing the cud. So it seems like the right time of day to be doing that. There's about 10 or so buffalo here amongst us. All big old boys, semi-retired and no longer too interested in following the herd. Anyway, what a morning it has been. It has really been such a easy start for me after being on leave for 2 weeks. For those of you who were with us at the start of the show, we got really lucky. After the technical difficulties, I do apologize for, but you didn't miss anything in the beginning, and we got the show going just in time to race across towards Shadow and her cub, and we got to see them running around and playing. We sadly didn't get to see him pounce on that francolin that he caught, but he did catch a francolin while we were right there. We were just repositioning the vehicle, and sadly didn't see the action, but next thing we knew, we had Sindile with the francolin dangling out of his mouth. Also some interesting interactions between Shadow and him. She was quite hostile towards him this morning, and I have seen a bit of that behavior in time, or over time, but this morning was more so than normal, and it could have been that she was wanting to get him off her tail so that she could focus on doing some hunting. And as soon as they did split up, it was very close to the Treehouse Waterhole, she was heading straight there, and we looped around expecting her to pop out and have a drink. She didn't arrive on time, and what that led us to believe was that she could have got distracted hunting something. We moved back into the area where we last saw her, and we did find her stalking something. We didn't see what it was in the end, but I'm hoping that they both are still going to be in this general area for the sunset safari. It'll be great to see them again and see what progress she has made on her hunting. Interestingly, he seemed to have fed on more of the impala than she did. They did have an impala kill that was stolen by hyenas early this morning, just before we got into the sighting. So she didn't look as full-bellied as he did, and that is probably why she's already interested in trying to get their next meal. Well, a very big thank you from myself for all the kind welcome messages to be back here, and it always is so great to have all of your help and support. It really does help us get back into the swing of things after being away for a few weeks. So a big thank you for that. And also for simply following in on the show and sending through your questions and comments. It's been a wonderful morning and good to have you with us. And also a big thank you to Jess, Tara and Nikki, who have all been in the final control room, getting the show out to you. And well done to James and Brian on their contribution to this morning's show. From myself, Scott, and Andrew on camera, big thanks to you. We're going to let you enjoy some views of these buffalo for the last couple of minutes before the show ends. Enjoy, and we will see you all next time. You'll notice there's a few oxpeckers hopping around, and that's what Andrew's going to try and show you now for the last minute or so. because it's